Hey, Jamie here, and welcome to Module 2, Mindset Transformation, Part 2, where we're going to be talking about core values and values for making decisions in life. So similar to Part 1, where we talked about core beliefs that are deeply conditioned into you, values we also have deeply conditioned into us because of associations, which we'll talk about. So in this, we're going to be covering what are core values, what are value hierarchies, and what are the subconscious rules that we have within our values and within our value hierarchies. So then we'll be breaking down how do we go about using values as a framework for understanding and making both life and career decisions, as well as breaking down and understanding how do we go about restructuring our value hierarchies. Because oftentimes what we'll find is we have value conflicts which don't always serve us in our lives, in our careers. So how do we think about core values? Core values, and if someone were to ask you, what do you value most in life? A couple thoughts probably immediately come to your mind, like family, friends, or money, or health, or any of these other very more common words that people often say that they value. But the thing is that values are not the means, but the ends. And what I mean by that is they're not things. They're actually feelings. And these feelings are what influence all of our judgments and all of our decisions in life. So why do most people value family? Think about that for a second. Why do you value your family, if you do? Now, if I were to counter that and ask, well, are there people who don't value their family? And why? What things might have happened or what might have caused someone to not value their family? And similarly, why do most people value money? Why do you value money? Or if you don't value money, why don't you value money? So the thing behind any value that's a thing, so again, if someone says that they value family or they value health, or they value money, the question is, well, why? Why do you value that thing? And the answer to the why is everything breaks down into both pain and pleasure. These are the two forces that drive all of your behavior and all human behavior in total. Because we will always make decisions to move towards pleasure and away from pain. And I'm sure that you've heard that people move more aggressively away from loss than they will towards gaining something, gaining money, gaining attraction, gaining status, gaining pleasure, etc. And that's just human behavior. We will always decide and act to avoid pain and gain pleasure. And more often than not, most people will move more aggressively away from pain than they will take action to move towards pleasure. Now, what that means is we have associations that are conditioned into us. Over our entire life experiences, we've been conditioned to associate pain and pleasure to certain things within our lives. And how much pain and pleasure we associate to something is going to determine how much we value it. And if we deeply associate pleasure, whether it's love or connection or warmth, cheerfulness, happiness, gratitude, all these positive things to family, and you've associated those positive feelings very deeply over many, many years, you're going to value your family a lot. But what you really value is the feelings that you get from your family, the feelings that are associated to your family. Same thing with your friends. And when you think about what do you not value, what do you really dislike, strongly dislike, you never want to experience or never have in your life. Now, if you think about it, why do you move so aggressively away from those things? Or why do you despise or dislike those things so much? It's probably because you associate a lot of pain to those things. So, as a quick exercise, take a quick second, pause the video if you need to, and make sure that you have a pen or a blank sheet of paper with you. All right, so now pause the video again, and you're going to want to quickly, for about a minute or two, jot down as many bullet points as possible that come to your mind for this question. What's most important to you in life? Okay, so you should have jotted down some bullet points or some thoughts for what's most important to you in life now. And what you want to do is you might have jotted down a lot of things. So whether that's family or friends or vacations or clothes or anything else. And what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what do these things make me feel? Why do I value? What positive feelings do I get from these things? Do I get love? Do I get connection? Do I get fulfillment? Do I get happiness? Do I feel successful? Do I get respect? Do I get importance? What feelings, and take another minute or two if you need to, pause the video or so, but really think through all of the different things that you have written down for this question and come up with as many different feelings as possible that these different items that you wrote down or these different things, what do they make you feel? And now what you're going to do is once you have that list of emotions, that list of feelings, and maybe you have 10 or 15 or 20 different feelings, these are the feelings that you move most towards. But now, and as an example, so someone that I previously worked with, I use 5 as an example here. So 5 feelings that someone really moved towards was a feeling of being successful, feeling fulfilled, feeling happy, feeling loved, and feeling important. But now what must happen is, in order to know how are you prioritizing things in life, how are you making decisions in life based on these values, in order to do that, you need to weigh these values relative to one another. And how you're going to do that is put all of the emotions, all of the feelings in a row or in one list. And what you're going to do is you're going to start at the top of the list. And so, for example, we're starting with successful. And then what you're going to do is you're going to compare the feeling of being successful to all of the feelings below it. And if one is most important to you, then you're going to put a star next to the one that's more important to you. So as an example, you're consistently asking yourself the question, which is more important to me? So as an example, which is more important to me, to feel successful or to feel fulfilled? Now, when you're doing this, you want to go with your gut instinct, because remember, right now you're just trying to understand how am I currently living? How am I currently making decisions, and what are my current values? Don't judge yourself. There may be a couple where you're like, oh, I really don't want to say I value success more than happiness, but that might be the case. And you want to be completely honest with yourself. Do not judge yourself. Go with the first thing that comes to your mind. However you've been living, it's important to get an accurate mirror, a reflection of how you're currently making decisions right now. Don't judge yourself. Just go through it. So, which is more important to me, feeling successful or feeling fulfilled? In this case, the example was fulfilled. Okay, well then you're going to go down and compare successful to the next one. So which is more important to me, feeling successful or feeling happy? In this case, it was successful. So I'll put a star next to successful. Which is more important to me, feeling successful or feeling loved? Feeling successful. Which is more important to me, feeling successful or feeling important? Feeling successful. So now that you've compared, and this is just a short list here, but now that you've compared the top one, or whichever word or feeling you're focused on, to all the feelings below it, now you're going to move down. So now you're going to start with fulfilled and compare fulfilled to all the feelings below it, and do the exact same thing with a star next to whichever one is more important. So which is more important to me, feeling fulfilled or feeling happy? Fulfilled. Which is more important to me, feeling fulfilled or feeling loved? Fulfilled. Which is more important to me, feeling fulfilled or feeling important? Fulfilled. Okay, so in this case, as the example, fulfilled is 4 stars. So you can tell that that's a pretty heavily weighted value. Then you move down one and compare happy to all the ones below it. So which is more important to me, feeling happy or feeling loved? Happy. Which is more important, feeling happy or feeling important? Important. Now you move down one again. Which is more important to me, feeling loved or feeling important? Important. So now you've compared all of them in this example to one another. So all the stars are done, all the comparing is done. So now you want to reorganize them into a hierarchy. And this is how your brain is working. This is how your values are influencing your decisions in life, your judgments in life. So if someone that has this value hierarchy is making decisions in life, they're making decisions primarily, first and foremost, in order to feel fulfilled. Now, if we were to completely flip this, and just for an example here, if we were to flip this value hierarchy and someone else had loved as their top value, they'd be living a different life than someone who, say, had importance as their top value or successful as their top value. So whatever your most important values are is going to massively influence the decisions that you make in your life. So now, once you have them ranked, you then need to define what rules you have for your different values. And so what I mean by rules is you're going to go through all of the values that you have in your value hierarchy, and I would say cut it off at 10. So you might have a list of 15, you might have a list of 20, maybe 30 in some cases, but what you want to do is only focus on your top 10 values. So once you have your top 10 values, you're then going to ask the question, what must happen for me to feel blank? What must happen for me to feel successful? What must happen for me to feel loved? What must happen for me to feel happy? And the reason this question is so important is we have beliefs about what must happen for us to feel certain emotion. And the rules that we have for these different feelings, for these different values, massively determines when we allow ourselves to feel these values or to feel these emotions. So as an example, there was someone I previously worked with who, when we were going through this, I asked her, well, what must happen for you to feel successful? And she came up with this list. She said, Jamie, this is what needs to happen in order for me to feel successful. I need to be making more than $100,000 a year. I need to be happy, and I want my family and friends to be happy and healthy too. I need to be recognized by other people for my work. And I need to receive a promotion or a raise at work because that means that I'm doing well and I'm advancing through the company. And I also have to have people coming to me for advice. Now, before I say anything, what are your initial thoughts on these rules? Do you think they're good rules? Do you think they're bad rules? And why? How do you think that these rules influence how she's living life and how she feels? How often do you think that she feels successful? So, when she explained these values to me, I pretty clearly and accurately asked, you don't feel very successful often, do you? And she said no. And I said, I can explain why. Most of her rules that she set for herself and when she allows herself to feel successful are out of her control. So she wasn't currently making $100,000 a year. And so immediately I knew, all right, well, step one, like you're not making $100,000. Do you feel successful? She said, well, no, not yet. I said, all right, well, that's a downer. And then how often can you control your family and your friends' health and their happiness? And she said, well, I can't control it, but I can help influence. And I said, of course you can. But at the end of the day, you can't put the spoon in your family's mouth. You can't put the spoon in your friend's mouth. You can't control whether or not they eat properly or whether or not they work out or whether or not they sleep well. And so this factor was out of her control and it was adding stress to her life. And then the third one was recognized by others for her work. Can you control whether or not other people recognize you? Of course not. And so she wasn't being recognized by other people for her outstanding work at her job. And that was actually one of the things that was frustrating her the most, was she was going above and beyond and not being recognized for it. And because of that, she didn't feel successful. And then receiving a promotion or raise at work, again, she doesn't control that. Now she can influence it, but at the end of the day, the decision's not hers. It's the manager's or her manager's. And then the last one is people come to her for advice. She can't control whether or not people come to her for advice. She can hopefully influence it by being very nice and open and willing to help people. But at the end of the day, she cannot control that. So most of the factors that were determining whether or not she felt successful were out of her control. or very far into the future. And so because of that, she didn't allow herself to feel successful, which is extremely limiting because for her, that was one of the most important values in her life, one of the most important feelings for her. So when you're going through your values and you're creating the rules, the ones that you move towards, the ones that make you feel good, the ones that you strongly desire, those are your moving toward values. And you will make decisions both consciously and subconsciously in order to do and feel those feelings, those emotions, and you move towards them. You'll take actions in order to gain that pleasure. And based on the rules that you have, that's what determines whether or not you allow yourself to actually feel that feeling or emotion. But similarly, you also have the pain, and you have painful emotions. You have painful feelings. And these are what you strongly dislike, both consciously and subconsciously, and you make decisions and actions to move away from these feelings and emotions. So the next question you're going to have to create, and the next value hierarchy you're going to have to create, is a negative or a moving away from values hierarchy. So the question for that is, which feelings do you most strongly not want to experience in your life? And if you would, take another minute or two, pause the video, and write down a quick list of things that you most strongly move away from. Which feelings and emotions are the worst, most painful feelings that you never want to feel in your life? Okay, so now similarly, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to think through, what are the rules that I've been living by for these different feelings, for these different negative away from values? And what must happen for me to feel rejection? What must happen for me to feel depression? What must happen for me to feel loneliness? What must happen for me to feel like a failure? What must happen for me to feel humiliation? What must happen for me to feel embarrassment? All of these negative feelings we have rules for. And we've created rules over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, however old you are. We've been living subconsciously with these rules that we came up with. And usually we absorb these rules from other people, whether in our family or our friends, people that we work with, etc. We've absorbed and conditioned in these rules that oftentimes we don't even know that we're living by them. And people have many, many, many more rules for feeling negative than they do for feeling good. And that's most likely what you're going to find, is you have a lot more rules for when you allow yourself to feel sad or lonely or frustrated or upset or rejected or like a failure. So now what you want to do is look at your top 5 toward and away values. And you can do this after you've done your hierarchies and done your rules. But after you've done your hierarchies and your rules, and I'll show you that in a second in the worksheet how you're going to do that. After you've done the worksheet, you then want to ask yourself, do I have any value conflicts? And where conflicts come up is when, keep in mind, most people, most humans, move more strongly away from negative feelings than they do move towards positive feelings. And so because of that, as an example, if your number one toward value, the most important feeling or a very important feeling that you have in your life is a feeling of being successful or feeling successful, but at the same time, one of your most painful, the feeling you move away from most strongly is failure, that's a huge conflict, because you cannot achieve success without going through failure. And there are things that you will need to do that you're not going to nail on the first try. And so because of that, most people will not do what's necessary to be successful because they move so strongly away from feeling failure. And this is a classic example of a value conflict for a professional life. Now, what about a personal life, a personal value conflict? Love and rejection. So a lot of people strongly value love, but at the same time, they very strongly move away from rejection. And so because of that, a lot of people close off in relationships. A lot of people are really afraid to get too close to someone. And it's because they move so firmly away from the idea of loss or the idea or the feeling of rejection, that they're not willing to be vulnerable. They're not willing to open themselves up and jump headfirst into love or jump into a relationship because they're afraid of the pain of what will happen if it doesn't work. But that's no way to live. And similarly, with the value conflict in our careers, we cannot have the value conflict between successful and failure. We have to restructure this. We have to get rid of the value conflicts. So when we talk about restructuring, what you're going to do is you're going to think through, what are the most important values that I want for my life and my career? And in what order will I prioritize these feelings, these emotions? And then what you're going to do is you're going to create rules that you can meet every single day. And for your feeling good values, for the pleasureful values, for your moving toward values, you're going to create rules that allow you to feel successful, to feel loved, to feel happy, to feel cheerful. All these incredible, positive, empowering emotions that drive you, that make you happy, that make you become a better person every day. And when you go to bed at night, you feel good knowing I'm falling asleep tonight a better man or woman than I was this morning. Very few people have that luxury of allowing themselves to feel that good at night, knowing that they felt great all day. And it's because they have rules that they can't meet. So you have to restructure those. And then similarly, you're going to be restructuring the negative, the moving away from values. And you're going to make those values or those feelings very difficult to feel. For example, a lot of people allow themselves to feel frustrated very easily. They have, 30 rules for when they can feel frustrated. Well, if they feel frustrated all the time, then they're never going to feel excited or loved or compassionate or grateful or any of these other positives because, again, the negative feelings will run their life. And they have too many rules for those negative feelings. So your value hierarchy is a decision framework, and it will influence all of the judgments and decisions that you make in your life because it's like a filter. It's like a screen. Whenever something comes up in your life, whether it's a career decision or a life decision, you immediately run it through your value hierarchies. And then based on what those values are is going to directly influence the decisions that you make. So for example, if someone has successful as a number one priority over love, well, when that person finds themselves in a situation where they need to make a split-second decision or a very short-term decision between family and loved ones or going to a corporate board meeting or continuing a meeting and not picking up the phone when their wife or husband calls, that's a value decision. And whatever that person's value hierarchy is going to decide what that person does. And so it's really important for you to know, how am I living my life? How am I making my decisions? What are my values and in what order? So the worksheet that you're going to be going through is the very first thing you're going to do is think through, what are my current towards values? And as I said, first start by just asking yourself the question, what's most important to me in life? And once you come up with that list, then you want to think through all of the things that you wrote down and ask yourself, why do I value this? What feelings do I get from this thing? So if it's family, what feelings do I get from my family that I value, that I move towards, that are very pleasurable? So then you're going to come up with that list. Maybe you have 15, 20, or 30 different feelings. And then, as I showed you in the slideshow, then you're going to compare and weight by saying, all right, which is more important to me, feeling important or feeling loved? Which is more important to me, etc. So once you weight them, then you're going to view or put the stars next to each one and then rank the stars from most stars to least stars. And that's going to give you what is your current towards values. And you're going to take those top 10 current towards values and put them here. And then what you're going to do is say, all right, well, which are the 5? The top 5 from here, you're going to put the top 5 down here. And then you're going to come up with, what are my rules? What are my rules for the top 5 toward values that I currently have? And these are the rules where you ask yourself the question, what must happen for me to feel important? What must happen for me to feel loved? What must happen for me to feel successful or respected or any of the other emotions that you have in these top 5. So after you do that, then you're going to do the exact same thing and come up with your current away values. And these are the question that you're going to ask yourself to come up with these is, what do I most strongly not want to feel in my life? So you're going to do the exact same thing as you did for the towards. So for the away, you're going to list your top 10 here, the hierarchy top 10. Take your top 5, and you're only going to analyze your top 5 because really it's the top 5 that are most influencing the decisions that you're making in your life and your career. So once you have the top 5, then you're going to think through, what rules do I have for these top 5 negative moving away from values, from these emotions I most strongly do not want to feel in my life. And when you think about it too, the number one moving away from value you have, that is the single most painful feeling you've probably ever experienced in your life. If it's guilt, if it's rejection, if it's failure, if it's depression, I mean, this number one feeling that you move away from it's kryptonite to Superman. It is the worst thing in your life. And you want to come up with, what are the rules that I currently have for this? Because a lot of people have a lot of rules that allow themselves to feel that really negative feeling. So once you've come up with all the current moving towards and moving away from values, then you want to restructure. And restructuring is, you're now going to decide your new top 10 towards values. And you're going to come up with, how do I want to live my life? What values and feelings and emotions do I want to feel every day? How do I want to make the decisions? What feelings do I want to as a filter for making decisions in my career and life? And then you're going to come up with rules that are easy to meet and will allow you to feel these positive feelings frequently and daily. So once you've come up with those rules and you've restructured your towards values, then you're going to restructure your away from values. And you're going to do the same thing. Which top 10 negative feelings do I not want to feel? And you're going to make these rules very, very difficult to feel these feelings. So I've included my examples below. By no means do you need to copy them or anything like that, but I only included them below here. And these are my restructured ones. And I did this probably 16, 17 months ago now. And the reason I included them is just so you have an idea of what I mean by towards values and away from values. So for me, my top 10 were fulfilled, loved, healthy, courageous, passionate, cheerful, creative, successful, integrity, and confident. And you can see I've included here, what are the rules that I've created for myself. So fulfilled, my rule is, well, I can feel fulfilled when I'm pursuing my mission and I can support myself. I'm learning every single day and I'm becoming a better man every day. I spend time with my family, friends, others, as well as myself. And a second example is loved. I feel loved when people enjoy spending time with me and talking with me. I don't expect, I appreciate. So those are simple examples for towards values and then for away from values. So my top one that I moved most strongly, it was the worst feeling that I never wanted to feel, was self-doubt. And the reason I put the rule as I'm physically dead or brain dead is self-doubt has never once helped me in my entire life. And it never will. And so I created a rule and I remind myself of this rule every single day, which I'll show you in day 4 or in session 4, module 4, how we go about reminding yourself of these things every single day. But I remind myself every day, there's no place for self-doubt. I'm either physically dead or brain dead because it will never serve me in my life. And then second was failure. And the rule I created is when I've chosen to give up and I've stopped trying to achieve my goal. As long as I know I'm getting out of bed, I haven't given up, I'm still trying, and I'm still making progress, I'm still putting one foot in front of the other, I will not allow myself to feel like a failure. No matter the outcome, no matter what happens that day, no matter what happens that week or month, if I haven't given up and I'm still moving forward, I will not allow myself to feel like a failure. So these are my examples. Go ahead and start working through this worksheet following this video. And as a summary, so that's everything I have for this part 2 of mindset transformation and values. And then in part 3, after you've done this worksheet, in part 3, we're going to dive into what is self-identity. And how does that massively affect all the decisions as well as the behavior and actions that you take in your life? So I'll see you there.